Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Benz, and welcome back to the Shapez Industries universe. Welcome back to the BEASTMAM series. We've arrived at the 34th video in this series, and over the course of the previous 33 videos, in case you didn't notice, we've been gradually making a rightward movement. We've worked our way through the decoder first, roughly from left to right, and then we talked about the factories that create the individual flat and floating pieces, and finally ended up at the previous episode where we looked at the first part that comes after, which is the section of the factory where the individual pieces get combined and, if need be, smelted and layer painted. Today, we're going to continue our rightward movement and look at the next section that the shapes move into. This is where the combined pieces meet the flat ones and get stacked one final time before they're ready to get shipped into the hub. For our chapter structure, this means that we've arrived at Chapter 5b, Episode 2, The Last Stack. At this point in the machine's process, we've concocted all but one of the ingredients we need. At this point, the machine will have provided up to 4 flat pieces and up to 3 floating pieces that may or may not have been combined and may or may not have been layer painted. The only ingredient left to mix into our cocktail is the 5th layer. And with those 8 ingredients, we do have everything we need. I would briefly like to take you back to 18 videos ago and recall when we spoke about the decoder's validator module. The 8 ingredients I just mentioned comprise the physical equivalents of the exact same 8 ingredients we used in the decoder. Now, you may or may not remember this, but due to their very nature, these 8 pieces can always be arranged in a certain way that will allow us to stack them from top to bottom regardless of which those pieces is actually present in the solution or not. If they are given, then we can always stack the 5th layer on top of the remainder of layer 4, on top of the combo float with base layer 3, on top of the remainder of layer 3, on top of the combo float with base layer 2, on top of the remainder of layer 2, on top of the combo float with base layer 1, on top of the remainder of layer 1. That's a guarantee, and because that's guaranteed to be the case, we can sort the output lanes of the individual production lines that we've built up to here in exactly the same way. So over here, we've got a pretty big stacker module, and the 5th layer is stacked on top. Then comes the remainder of layer 4, followed by combo float 3, remainder of layer 3, combo float 2, remainder of layer 2, combo float 1, remainder of layer 1. And that's the order in which we will stack. Now, the stacker itself, while big, is actually rather straightforward. It consists of small, smart stacker units with built-in bypasses based on mini storages, so that if both input lanes have shapes on them given, those shapes will get stacked. But if only one lane is active, then those shapes will be passed onwards automatically. Let's demo that. So if I disable the left lane, for example, then the yellow shapes will bypass the stacker through the rightmost storage. And if I disable the right lane instead, then we will get a small backup first, but then the red shapes will get sent through the leftmost storage's secondary output, which tunnels below the stacker and joins the output lane. The benefit of this kind of stacker is that it doesn't require any wiring to function. However, the inputs must be balanced in order for it to work. And this is why you can see that the 8 inputs coming from the left are distributed equally over 8 stacker lanes. And then that way the pieces are gradually assembled, moving upwards until the shapes come out neatly stacked at the top. And then at the very end of the line, there is one final SLP that we might use in cases where the final shape requires smelting and layer painting after having been stacked. After all, that is one of the possible scenarios. And the filter that determines that is located right here. So let's put a shape on the input wire where that's the case, shall we? Prepare the shape right here. So we're going to let the machine produce that. Now, if you remember the smelt type code shape, this one right here, let's wait for the machine to find a solution. So this smelt type code shape, which made its appearance among others in the previous episode, there is one code in particular that differs in setup from the others, and that's this one, the one that has a yellow color. We've talked about how all the other cases of this code shape are handled, but we haven't talked about the yellow shape yet. And well, let me find the split real quick. There we go. Just as with all the other cases, I've put a comparing unit here that's going to check for yellow. And if it finds a match, well, then it'll output a 0 for a match and a 1 otherwise. And that is going to trigger, or it's going to operate this filter right here, which determines whether or not the final SLP is used. If it is not used, then the filter will remain open and the shapes will simply bypass the entire module and come out right here. The shapes then move into this final little module, which is another full belt setup, which for none other than aesthetic purposes will hold off on outputting until a full belt is achieved. And that brings us to the very end of the line, the end of our story, where the final shape, any imaginable shape, can get input into the hub, where it will be stored forever. And that, my friends, is how the BEASTMAM works in all of its glory. Over the course of 34 videos, I have shown you how the decoder's clock-based algorithm rapidly cycles through sets of floating shapes, combines them according to the base layer, calculates all of the quadrants that aren't in any of the currently selected pieces in order to assemble the remainder, tries smelting and layer painting until the validator finds a match, at which time the pieces get locked in, some code shapes are generated, and duplicates are filtered out so that the flat and floating piece factories can start creating those pieces, rotating and cutting and stacking them where necessary, outputting their shapes to the physical combiner units with auto bypass, optionally into SLPs, to then get assembled in one final stacker, optionally again with an SLP, and then graciously get delivered to the hub. So, does this mean it's over? Is this the end of the BEASTMAM series? Well, no, not yet. There are still a few things I want to show you before we call it a day. I could go ahead and lift the tip of the veil already, but actually, I think I'd like to leave you in suspense. One extra reason to let your mouse hover towards that subscribe button and notification bell so you stay tuned. I still have a few interesting things to show you about this machine, so I hope you're looking forward to it. And as always, thank you very much for watching. See you soon. I've been Bins. Take care. Bye-bye.